Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of the SLMA Radio Show. Brought to you on behalf of the thousands and thousands of members of the Sales Lead Management Association. It has to do with sales lead manager and sales lead marketing. Probably starts here with the SLMA Radio Show. Today, as always, we're privileged to have with us, well, actually a new guest. New guest host is going to be doing a special segment for us each and every month called Ready, Set, Grow. Welcome, Laura Patterson. Hey, Laura.
Thank you. Very excited about this new show.
Ready, Set, Grow. Give us a quick synopsis of what we're going to see as we tune in each and every week here.
Well, this show is for us and the listeners to gain insights and wisdom from members of the C-suite on how to grow organically, the role they expect marketing to play in growth, and how they will measure marketing's contribution to growth. We're really excited to have the opportunity to talk about this really important topic.
All right, so who are you going to kick off with your inaugural episode here today?
Today, we're kicking off this show with Steve Shanklin, fondly known as Ziggy. Ziggy is the founder and CEO of Wheelgroup Security, which provides a trust listing cybersecurity service that blocks all untrusted programs and scripts from running on a user's computer system. As you know, cybersecurity is a very hot topic in today's environment. And Ziggy has extensive experience in this space. He served as the director of software development for two cybersecurity startups, both of which were acquired by Cisco. They were Wheelgroup Corp and Psionic Software. And prior to starting Wheelgroup, he invented their breakthrough app trust listing technology. He was also the VP of engineering at Coretrace, an application whitelisting company acquired by Lumension Security. So he has extensive experience in the space and lots of experience in the C-suite. Ziggy, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me on the show today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, let's get started and talk about growth. And let's kick off just talking about being a CEO, where organic growth is on your priority list.
Well, it's obviously number one. You know, what it always boils down to is really the CEO is responsible for everything. And he should feel responsible for everything, which includes sales. And essentially, if you don't have revenue and you don't have revenue growth, I don't think you have a company. But you need to have a strategy that just not helps you grow, but also reserves a channel for your future growth. I think, you know, when I look at cities where they're building roads, you know, quite too often we see a city put in a 4-lane freeway somewhere that really should be a 3 or 4-lane highway. And I think that when it comes to organic growth, you have to be thinking ahead. You can't just plan for trying to make your sales in 2018 or 2019. You have to be thinking about, where am I going to be 5 years from now?
Awesome. So if you're thinking about where you're going to be 5 years from now, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing not only your company, but companies in general who are focused on organic growth?
Well, I think a lot of companies are competing in overcrowded marketplaces. You know, a good example that you can see is you look at like AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, and we see their commercials all the time pitching their brand, and they're all vying for each other's customers. And it becomes a zero-sum game of, I have to basically steal from somebody else in order to get, you know, new customers. And I think that that's really the problem, is you have to start thinking it from a different way. Back in 2010, I stumbled on a book from one of my friend's bookshelves that talked about blue ocean strategy. And it really opened my eyes to how you need to be thinking about organic growth, from saying that I don't want just to compete in this, what they call a red ocean, which is an already established marketplace. If I were like a phone company trying to compete against the major 4 cell phone carriers, I don't want to just start up a new cell phone company and try to compete with them. I have to figure out, how can I actually open up and have a larger marketplace? So an example would be to create a blue ocean in the cell phone world would be saying, hey, I've got to figure out all the other devices, all the other things in the world that need to be connected or could be connected, and approach that market as a bigger market rather than just trying to siphon off customers from other carriers. Does that make sense?
It does. I remember that book on Blue Ocean. That's a great book. So I think you're right. Almost every company today is facing a tremendous competition, and clutter is especially apparent in your market. And, one of the things that I find in working with companies, particularly members of the C-suite, that seems to separate them and differentiate them, besides the things around their products and services and how they talk about their products and services and engage with their customers, is culture. So what kind of organizational culture do you feel is vital for any company wanting to grow organically?
Well, I think that part of it is that we have to, especially us as a startup, you have to be able to turn. You can't be an aircraft carrier that takes a long time to get moved into a different direction. And that's very difficult for large companies. They get into a position where it takes that way. But for most of us that are trying to really achieve growth from being a small company to get to where we want to go, to be profitable, we have to be able to be more nimble. And this is one of the other facets of the Blue Ocean strategy that I think is really important. And it's important for the culture there in the company, for your sales and marketing team to understand, is that there's these value innovations that decide whether customers are going to purchase from you or for somebody else. And the Blue Ocean strategy helps you to decide, how can I increase the value innovations that impact customers, that they're actually willing to pay for, and how can I reduce the cost of features and functionality that really people don't need to have or don't care about anymore. For instance, on a phone, nobody wants a rotary dial phone anymore when we have touchtone. So that's something that you no longer need to go out and build rotary phones anymore. In our organization, we have this list. We actually have a slide deck that has the things that we have eliminated as features. For instance, in our particular product line, we eliminate setup fees. We eliminate the need for a management console for our security tool that you would have to install locally in your own network. Instead, you have a cloud-based thing. And we reduce things such as the need for installing your own failover and backup and reporting. And then we raise other value innovations. And the team and the culture has to be able to say, oh, hey, I realize now that the market is changing, or the market's needs, people might be perceiving a new need, and we need to be able to recognize that and feed that back into how our marketing approach, how our strategy is, to make sure that we take advantage and capture those changes of what's going on in the marketplace.
Okay, so that's a great segue, but just to be sure I'm clear, I think I heard you say sort of three things that you earmarked there. One was being nimble or agile. The other was a culture of innovation. And lastly, a culture that is focused on customer value creation. Did I get those three right?
That's it. And and this kind of feeds into the whole thing about how you evaluate yourself. But it truly is those three things.
Awesome. And you had a great segue talking about the role of marketing. So what do you believe is the role of marketing in driving organic growth?
I've worked at large companies and small companies, and you can see a real big difference sometimes in how marketing approaches problems. I think that marketing's real role should be to create and maintain that messaging that communicates the company's relevant value innovations that will correctly address or directly address the customer's pain points. As a startup company, one of the things we always focus on is, what is the customer's pain? Because VCs like to invest in painkillers, not vitamins. And I think that from a marketing approach, sometimes marketing is just used as a branding tool, and they need to be more than that. They really need to help, because I find that salespeople will be all over the map. And I think it's really marketing's job to help formulate, what is this message that we're trying to get across that communicates how we solve your pain? Because people buy solutions, they don't buy brands.
Yes, I think that's what we'd like to talk about at Vision Edge Marketing is marketing in terms of the upstream, the things that marketing needs to do to help the organization make better strategic decisions about customers, products, and markets. Of course, there's a number of capabilities around that, including what you're talking about, that relevant and compelling messaging that will resonate with customer pains. That old story you were alluding to, be an aspirin, not a vitamin.
I would say be an opioid, not a vitamin.
Okay,
opioids, get a knot. When people have true pain, if you've broken a bone, you want that real painkiller that completely eliminates the pain, not that just dulls it. But yes, you're on the right track there.
We won't go off down the opioid tangent, considering the what's going on out there in the real world around that particular topic. But yes, we want to definitely resolve or eliminate the pain. And so when I think about the marketing organizations that we've had the privilege of working with, how well they play this role, we find that there are many marketing organizations who tend to sort of get in the weeds and kind of end up being sort of sales support and around sort of the pipeline. So when you think about organic growth and being a more strategic player, and your experience, how well do you think marketing is playing this role?
Well, I often see that marketing acts as spin rather than as a disciplined approach to customer engagement. And I think the reason for this, more often than not, is because marketing is usually an afterthought or a follow-on stage to product development. People come out and they develop a mousetrap and they go out and they say, oh, now how do we market this to people? Rather than saying, do we really need a mousetrap? You know, if you're on a space station, you're probably not going to have a need for a bear trap, but you probably need something to help avoid collisions from meteorites. And so it's really about, a lot of times people end up developing a marketing strategy after the fact rather than thinking about it as part of what their business is all about from the very beginning.
Well said. I totally agree with you. Marketing cannot be an afterthought. And as a person who's been in marketing for a very, very long time, I also concur with your thinking that we need to be at the front end, not at the back end, because if we're at the back end, it will potentially be too late. We might, to your point, not even have the right product in the marketplace or be able to talk about that product in a way that is meaningful to the market. So as we think about this marketing discipline, what are the two things, if you could give two pieces of advice to the CMOs and other members of the C-suite listening and other members of the marketing and sales profession, what are two things you believe any marketing organization could do better as a discipline to drive organic growth?
So for me, one of the things that really changed my career as an engineer and a product developer was back in 1994 when I came across the book by Al Ries and Jack Trout called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And it completely changed how I look at developing products. You know, it was where before, you build the best widget or the best security or the best, image transmission or whatever, and then you'd try to figure out, well, how do you sell this and how do you come up with the features list and everything. And instead, the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing taught me that if I want to own a market, then I need to be thinking about ahead of time, how do I differentiate myself from other people? And I started doing that when I build the product. And I love some of the examples I have in the book because they talk about one of the most important principles is owning a concept in the customer's mind. The prospect.
Hey, Ziggy.
Go ahead.
I'm getting a message here that we need to take a quick commercial break, and this is too good a conversation to not finish. So we'll be right back in just a moment, and we'll pick up the conversation about Al Ries, which I read that book too. It's a great book. Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back.
Okay, just take a quick moment to remind you that Vision Edge Marketing works with Chief Executive Financial Marketing, growth, strategy, customer insights, you name it, they do it all. Manufacturing, technology, financial services, medical device, life sciences, and transportation logistics industries. If you're facing growth or performance challenges, you may want to check out Vision Edge Marketing. They rely on Vision Edge Marketing's expertise to make more effective decisions regarding customers, markets, products, and the competition. You can improve the value of marketing and leverage data analytics processes and measurement to increase marketing's relevance and ability to deliver greater business impact. All of that and much more. You simply have to go to visionedgemarketing.com. That's visionedgemarketing.com. All right, back to Laura and her continuing conversation here.
Welcome back, everyone. We're having a wonderful conversation with Ziggy Shanklin from White Cloud Security, and we're having a conversation about the things marketing could do better as a discipline to drive organic growth. And right before we took our break, Ziggy was sharing some insights from a book he read by Al Ries a number of years ago. So, Ziggy, pick it back up, please.
Sure. The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, really, it's very easy to read. It's a short read. I highly recommend everybody read it. But it breaks things down into these different laws that apply, I believe, very succinctly to marketing. And one of them is about owning a concept in people's minds. And so we most often, when we say we're going to go make a copy, we talk about Xeroxing it. And that's because Xerox owns the concept of copy. And they have great examples about, hey, you're not first in the category. You may never, ever get to be the owner of that category unless the leader makes a mistake. And so they say, figure out how to put yourself into a new category. And it has to be more than just saying you're something different. You actually have to figure out what is that value innovation difference that puts you in a category all different to yourself. And I can go into how we've done that. But a good example of what they show is there was a little company, that was a freight company. And they wanted to be able to get bigger, and so they came up with an idea that essentially was, hey, if it has to be there overnight. And that was the birth of Federal Express. And we see how big they became by creating a new category that they alone specialized in at the time. And so for us, as marketing needs to figure out, what is it that I own? What are the attributes that I own? And what's so great about this book, another good example is, Heinz Ketchup was the leader. Well, their attribute was that their ketchup was slow. And so they talk about in the book, why is slow ketchup important? Well, it probably isn't. But they turned it into an attribute that was valuable to people, that people thought that slow ketchup was thicker, better, more tasty. And it's really about understanding what's about your product that you can take and present to people, not just with marketing spin, but to show this really makes your life better. And being able to get stuff shipped air freight overnight, that made a big difference in my life with the line of work I was in back when Federal Express started up.
Those are great examples. So, Ziggy, I can tell that book had a great impact on you. And one of the things I'm hearing you say, and which is a great transition to our next question, is that category ownership and value innovation are really important measures of marketing success. So we talk a lot about the fact that marketing needs to be able to do a better job of connecting its work and investments to business results, and that they need to be able to choose metrics and measures that measure the value, contribution, and impact they're having to the business. So if you're thinking about some of those kinds of metrics, not metrics around the pipeline or around the activity of marketing, but really around the business, beyond category ownership and value innovation, which I think are excellent examples, what other measures do you think marketing organizations ought to be thinking about?
Well, for me, one of the things that's always important is to ask the customers, does this accomplish what you hoped it would? Whether it's a feature, a white paper that, helps explain the product or their options, or even just a simple meeting. All too often we're trying to look at measurable, to try to quantify something that we have lots of data on, but the best data is always about what are the customers asking, and are you getting referrals from customers to take you to new customers? Those referrals are a direct indication to the new customer. It's that social proof to the new prospect that the customer believes in what you're doing. We have a partner that we're working with over in Guernsey, which is in the Channel Islands, in between the UK and France. And he has a software business he'd started up without any salespeople. And most of us would probably go, how did you do that? But essentially, he got to the point where he would be at a trade show, and somebody would bring one of their friends over to his booth and tell that person, this stuff really works, you need to buy it. And that kind of referral, that kind of a measurement coming from your customers is really important. I think the marketing team and the company also needs to be asking themselves, are we making revolutionary improvements rather than just incremental or evolutionary ones? Because it's that leap forward that sets you apart. Back when I was doing engineering and focused on features, my goal always was to leapfrog the competition. That I wanted to be working on what I thought would be ahead of the competition, so that when they came out with a feature, my next rev just a week or two or a month later would be ahead of them. And I think a lot of engineering people look at it from that perspective. But it also has to be from the value innovation. I mean, how dramatically are we changing? A good example is one of the things that we do is we offer security service that you can pay for on a monthly basis instead of on an annual basis. That's one of our Blue Ocean strategy innovations. And it allows customers to buy stuff from us in a very short time period, and they can expand out and use a lot of services in a short period of time without having to make an annual commitment to it. And that's the kind of thing you just have to keep asking yourself. Are we jumping ahead, not just feature-wise, but conceptual-wise in how we solve customers' problems?
Those are great examples. So if I am understanding you correctly, I think I heard some categories of metrics that you were thinking marketing should measure, things around the customer, some kind of customer metrics, whether that's customer lifetime value or customer advocacy, but certainly some customer retention rate. And I'm also hearing a category around innovation, whether that's innovation or product adoption of new innovation or something along those lines. And then lastly, I thought I heard something on competitors, some kind of metric around competitors, whether that's related to brand preference or rate of growth compared to the competition, something in that category. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, I think that really, you distilled it down very, very nicely. You're a good listener. It really is about being able to figure out, am I staying ahead of the competition, not just from a feature list, but from the way that the customer perceives us as being a better product, a better solution to their problems.
Yeah, preference. So we only have just a few minutes left. We have like 6 minutes left. And in the last 6 minutes, maybe for the next 4 or 5, tell us a little bit more about your path to being a CEO. And as you look back on your own personal journey, what particular insights or lessons learned or pearls of wisdom would you want to offer up to our audience?
So, for me, it started out as I was trained on computers in the Air Force back in '74. My stepfather said computers were going to be big one day and encouraged me to go that route. And I ended up getting to, after working for a process control company, started off with some friends, and I basically was the managing partner of a limited partnership for years. And that really forced me into the role of having to learn about sales, accounting, financing. But the biggest changes came about, I became very good at engineering, but running into like the 22 immutable laws really changed how I thought, and it added the whole marketing sales perspective that I needed to become a CEO to what I already had as engineering skills. And there's a lot of great CEOs like Steve Jobs and Larry Ellison of Oracle and others and Scott McNeely of Sun, who are great people and understand technically what needs to be done, but also have that great business sense. And so that was the thing that really helped me is learning and becoming interested in marketing and sales from that perspective. I've got a gift of gab I got from both my mom and dad, so that makes it easy for me to talk to people. I think what's really important is that I've learned over the years is to seek correction rather than seek being right. There's a lot of people that they let their ego get in the way. I think the sooner that you admit that you're wrong about something and recognize it, the better off you're going to be able to move in the right direction, and you'll be able to pivot. Denial only adds pain to a situation by delaying the implementation of the correct solution. And I think that that's really what's important as a CEO. You have to be you end up also, I think, you need to be serving everybody else. You can't see yourself as being the guy on the top that everybody else is serving. It should be an upside-down tree where the CEO is taking care of everybody else as much as he can.
That concept of servant leadership, I'm in agreement with you. Being a CEO here for almost 20 years, I can totally recognize how important it is for us to step into that type of a role and persona. It sounds like you've had a tremendous path to where you are today, and I think you're right. There's many folks along the way that always help us get where we're going, but I also like the fact that you took a lot of initiative to gain additional business acumen, and you recognized being an engineer wasn't enough, so that's awesome. We need to be wrapping it up today. I know we haven't covered everything that we would like to cover, but you've been a terrific guest, Ziggy. Thank you so much for doing this with us, and we'll talk with you soon.
You're very welcome, and I thankful for the opportunity to be on and to communicate some of the experiences I've had. You have a great day, everyone.
And I just want to welcome Laura to the SLMA show and ask two quick questions of both of you before you go. How do we reach each and one of you?
Ziggy, you go first. How do they reach you?
You can reach us at whitecloudsecurity.com. For people who are interested in sales, you could always just email sales@whitecloudsecurity.com, but go to our website, explain what we do, and there's a button where you can do a free pilot trial. It's easy to install our technology and to be free from a lot of the concerns and pain of worrying about malware stealing your data or infecting your system.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. You can reach me, Laura Patterson, at laurap@visionedgemarketing.com. That's Laura, P as in Patterson, at visionedgemarketing.com. And please come visit us at visionedgemarketing.com. We'd love to see you there.
You've been listening to another episode, a special episode of the SLMA. Tune in every month to learn out more of what's happening in the C-suite with Laura Patterson and her friends. Right here on the Funnel Radio Network for at-work listeners like you.